the workshop label or the kind of topics we're going to talk about today is a strategic planning for petroleum and gas, focusing on the current oil decrease position. When we talk about strategic planning, the word strategic means a long term. Strategic, tactics, and operational. But the word planning, here is the key. First of all, let me remind myself and remind you what management is all about. Can anybody define management for me? What's management? When you hear the word management, what do you think of? What do you figure out? Can we have an interactive answering? Management. What's management? No? Management basically is not doing the job required by the job description. Management is maximizing all the company resources in order to achieve two things, something called efficiency and something called effectiveness. If there is any difference between efficiency and effectiveness, you guys didn't have coffee yet? Seems like no coffee served, huh? Efficiency and effectiveness? Where's the students? They're very good at this. What's efficiency?
Do the things right and do the right things.
Very close, very close. But what's deeper definition for it? Effectiveness is getting the job done. Efficiency is getting the job done the right way. What's that means? Means utilizing all the resources that we have in order to get the job done. Back in 1987, as you see in here, Carl Lewis or Lewis Carl wrote a book. I quote from it in the book called Through the Looking Glasses. I quote for it some sort of a discussion between two people. One is asking the other, which way should I go? He said, depends on where you need to go. He told him, I really don't know where I need to go. He said, then any way can take you there. Any way can take you there to nowhere. That's exactly if we don't have a precise goals and objective. So the idea is having, crystallizing and understanding and defining where we stand and where we need to go. This is what would create efficiency and effectiveness. So management basically is maximizing all the resources that we have in the organization in order to make sure that we're getting the objective done. If there's any difference between the objectives and the goals, Your Excellency, we have to serve some coffee. Goals, objectives, ladies and gentlemen. All right, goals is qualitative things that the organization offers to its clients, which means quality, means something that you work for. Why we here? Why our organization are here? Just make sure that we're making some profit towards the end of the day. Making a profit doesn't come from anybody. Moving my castle. Okay. Making a profit is making sure that we make something called exchanging the satisfaction with the client. So the idea is our client who has the money that we're trying to work for, which is objective, because goals is qualitative and objective is quantitative. There's something got to be very understood to anybody who works in business, that in order to get objectives, you have to give some sort of goals out. So actually, goals equals the objective that you're trying to reach towards the end of your planning. All right. If we understand that management is maximizing all the resources, that means the resources the organization have, that means that we need to make sure to maximize the goals that comes out of any organization. That becomes very hard and very difficult in times like what we have now. But let's discuss this a little further. If we look at any hierarchy for any organization, it's like a pyramid. We have three types of management level. We have the top management, the middle management, and the lower management. The top management usually sets the direction. When we hear the word direction, it's strategic, because it's long term, it's gonna take us a while to get there. If I go this way, it's a different strategy. If I go this way, it's another strategy and a different strategy. Strategy does not mean objectives. Strategy does not mean activities. If the top management make sure that they involve in objective or they involve in activity, they're not doing their job and they're wasting their times. So the idea is, when I'm sitting on a top management, I have to make sure that I'm setting the direction only. And comes after that what we call the middle management, that's responsible for the tactics. The tactics is part of the objectives. A group of tactics outcomes would form one strategy outcome. So the idea here is, when we take the strategy, we'll break it down to some sort of different activities: marketing, operational, technical, finance, HR, whatever the case is, whatever the case in the organization line of business. And the middle management start to worry about executing those tactics. The execution of the tactics come from the lower, or we call them the supervisory management, or we call them the operational management, whatever you would like to call them. But these are the people that are responsible for getting the job done. Now, what is the question here? Is the strategy up in the top management, or the strategy in the middle management, or the strategy on the lower management? Can anybody answer me? The strategy in all three levels of management. The strategic level for the top management is a strategy for the whole organization. It's something extremely important and we need to know. The strategy for the middle management is a strategy for the activity. Strategy for the tactics of the organization. The strategy for the lower management is a strategy for the operational that would be collected together to form one tactic, which will be collected together to form the whole strategy for the whole organization. All right. Why I'm telling you all this? Because strategic, the topic today is strategic thinking, strategic management, strategic solution. So strategic starts from here, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't start from here. Later on, we're going to talk about something called scanning the environment, and we're going to talk about defining what organizations have. And it's a very popular tool that all strategic planner use. SWOT analysis, most probably a lot of people heard about it, and we're going to talk about it in details today. Let's see what the organization needs to do in order to get the management function. 5 jobs: planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and control. What's planning means? A lot of people say we don't know how to plan exactly. Everybody plans. You have a budget home. When you get your salary, you plan to use it the whole month. You're going into a trip, you plan what to do and what kind of activity you have with your family and all that. Everybody plans. The trick in a very good planning is one thing: reality. Knowing exactly where we stand, where we need to go, and setting an action plan, detailed action plan, and we're going to talk about it later on, so you can know which every step you need to take, when and where, how, who's going to be doing it, and how much it's going to cost. Planning, ladies and gentlemen, include the 4 other functions. If you separate one of the other function, four function of management function. From planning, you don't have a plan. If we say in a very simplified way that planning, I'm standing here and I need to go to the podium here or to the chairs here, so the idea is why I need to go there. What kind of activity I need to achieve in order to get there, and what kind of goals and objectives I'm going to achieve when I'm getting there. How long it's going to take me to get there, and how much it's going to cost me to get there. This is basically what organizing is, staffing is, leading is, and controlling is. Before we get there, I remember I was 26 years old and I have a friend who was 74 years. And we used to go fishing in the Atlantic, spend a couple of days together. He was an old Italian guy and he has some kind of wisdom. You know the mafioso's guy, got very good wisdom. He told me a good story. He said, Al, one day a guy met a girl. They fell in love. They decide they're gonna get married. They get married. They're gonna have a baby. And the guy, the father, keep thinking what I should call him, what I should call my son. He decided to call him Amazing, to do the amazing things all the time. And then the baby came, grow up, go to school, get married, get kids, get old, very close to die. So he sat down and he said, my dad called me amazing, and I never done any amazing things in my life. So I went to his wife and he said, do me a favor. When I die, don't write on my tombstone, here lies amazing. Write anything else. 2 weeks later, he died peacefully. She's a good wife, not like the one I had. She wrote down on the tombstone, here lies the man that been faithful to his wife for 65 years. What happened when everybody passes by the tombstone? Amazing. Exactly. You can take it as a joke, but there's an emerging lesson out of it. There is a lot of things in each and every one of us we don't know about it, which actually is the amazing part of our capabilities and our skills. Planning is very important to understand and to know what I have inside and I don't see from myself. That would show you some hidden skills and capabilities. You'll be amazed that you have those skills and capabilities. What I'm trying to say is, let's see why we do planning. Planning is to determine the current position. And this is exactly what the point we have about this session today, where we stand, what's happening here today, why the prices are too low. Did anybody study what happened from 1970 to today? Did anybody compare what happened in 2008, 2009 to the prices that we have starting from the second half of 2014? Did anybody compare it? Why are we having those crises or those price decrease today? So the main point is we need to determine the current status of the organization or where we stand. If you allow me, there is a very simplified forecasting theory. Says what's yesterday was consist of, what's today's consist of, what's the difference of the contents of yesterday between the difference of the content of today. If we could figure out how we moved from yesterday to today, what type, say for instance that yesterday was formed from 100 elements, and today is still formed from 100 elements. But number one is not the same number one, number 100 is not the same the number 100, or otherwise yesterday would be today, right? So the idea is there's some changes in every element from yesterday to today. If you could calculate and figure out what the difference between each item from yesterday to today, You figured out what happened, what kind of added value we had in the organization, how much the journey from yesterday till today cost us, and what kind of a better positioning we have for the organization, what kind of scales we had gains, and how much money it costed us to travel from yesterday to today. If we could figure this out, it's very important to do this every time we set a plan, because we need to know what type of fuel we have. Fuel is not only money, it's not only finance. Fuel is our people, employees' skill. Fuel is timing. Fuel is utilizing the use of all the resources and how people understand in the organization understand all the resources we have and how can they milk it out, get the best out of it. So the idea of determining where we stand is to figure out what happened, where and how much cost us, and how long it took us to travel from yesterday to today. Then we do something called surveying the environment or scanning the environment. If you so the hierarchy of the organization, it's not the job of the middle management or the lower management to scan the environment. The top management usually consists of the chairman of the organization. If we have VP for HR, if we have VP for finance, if we have VP for marketing, whatever, they are responsible for scanning the environment, each in their area of specialty. The guy of the marketing, for instance, he needs to know what kind of chances we have in the market, what kind of quality is required in the market, what kind of prices. We all know that marketing, all about marketing is 4 things, but they call them even 4 Ps. Product or service, pricing, promotion, and how we distribute it, which is placing. The HR people, the VP, need to scan what kind of labor supply I have, what kind of scales in the market, what kind of schools that graduates people that I need to work in my organization, and so on. So the idea, the second thing in here is to scan the environment, and we will figure out something very important out of scanning the environment, which is something called O and T, opportunity and threats. We'll talk about them later on. Then we set objectives. Can somebody help me out? How we set objectives? Can we have some coffee, Your Excellency, please? We really need some coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to... How you doing, sir? Mr. President. How we set objectives, Mr. President? Objective? It's number 3. That means we had to get it out of the first 2 steps. You probably agree with me on that, right? Okay. What happened when we determine the current position? We understand what kind of traveling we did from yesterday to today, right? So we figured out what we have and what we have that could travel us to the future. So it's like a precedental planning, something that we've done before, that we know exactly how to do again, and we know what kind of outcome will come if we use it correctly, right? أنا عارف إن أنا تعبك معايا وهفضل تعبك طول السيشن، فحضرتك إنساني وأنا هحاول أزعل. But the idea here, number 1, cleared us where we stand, okay? Number 2, showed us what happened around us. Because your organization, it's not working in a different planet than Earth. It's not working in a different country than Sudan. It's not different, working in different industry than oil and gas. So you scan what we need to leave an imprint on, all right? So we've done the first 2 things. How we set objectives? Objectives is quantitatives, ladies and gentlemen. Quantitative, it's in the pocket of the client. The client won't give me his money till I do something called exchanging the human satisfaction with them. Let's say that again. Something called exchanging irrida, human satisfaction. You give me your money, I give you the product I have. I remember I used to work for Aramco as a consultant back in 2002. And they had a very huge client in South Korea, I believe, and a huge ship was coming out of Yamba. And you know, Mr. President, probably with the gas valves, or I'm not technical, so I don't know what the problem happened. The end product went there totally different than the spec they ordered. They didn't want to pay anything. After the ship went there, it's a huge carrier. So the idea, what happened now, it's a lot of money. So they start trying to find a client that would buy it in the water, just to minimize الcost بتاعها أو loss بتاعها. So the idea here is objective is the return of the goals that the organization put out in the market. You agree with me, sir? So what happened here is objectives is what you do, it won't come out of your pocket. We don't print money in our companies. We wish. But the machine is not working anymore. That's why we don't print money. Where we get the money from? From the client. Why the client will give us the money? Because we give it exactly the spec they ask us to give them. So this is the quality. So one more time, quality equals objective. So the point is, qualitative do not get measured. Who is the best in quality? How do you figure that out? Everybody buys from him. What's that means? More money, more numeric, more number going to his pocket. So objective is, you can measure objective, but you cannot measure goals. But goals is a translation for objective that comes back to the organization, because it shows what exactly you have generated out of your company in terms of quality. That's why it's coming back to you. All right. Then we need to forecast the future situation. This is extremely important, and this is exactly what we're going to try to do today. Forecast is the smart, takes a lot of training, part of the game. What forecast means? Trying to crystallize the future. Nobody sees the future. But the idea is, from the given circumstances, from the given numbers, from the given past experience, from the given whatever you want to calculate, you're trying to see what the future is going to look like. You see the LCD or whatever, it's crystal. So you're trying to crystallize how things are going to look like in the future. How we do that? From reading yesterday to today, and seeing exactly what kind of difference that happened in our position today from the position we had yesterday, what kind of added value in the scales we have, what kind of added value in the finance we have, what kind of added value, and so on. So the idea is we're trying to crystallize the future to understand what kind of trend we had from yesterday to today. Then we set some sort of actions. What actions? Activities. Action had to be under the umbrella of strategy in order to lead exactly where the planning needs us to take. And we see what kind of resources we have. We evaluate the proposed action. Is it going to take us there? They asked me to step on it, so I'm going to try to go quickly. And then we revise and adjust all that. Let me go quickly show you something very important I would like to show you, which is the 7 steps that necessary for any plan. Number 1, as we agreed, is set personal and business goals. what you want to achieve and where you want to go. Personal goals is very important to be set before business goals. If I don't set my personal goals, I'm not going to give my organization the achievement they want me to do for them. So the idea is business goals is bigger than personal goals, because if you talk about me, myself, or you, maybe your respectful self by yourself, you're part of the organization. If you don't achieve what you want to achieve out of the organization, you're not going to work there, and you're not going to do whatever you have to do, so you're not going to get the business objective or the business goals done. Then we need to see what kind of obstacles that forbidden us or distract us or doesn't allow us to go from where we stand to where we need to go. So we can set some sort of a plan to overcome those obstacles. Then we need to understand what kind of resources and skills we have, which is part of what we need to go with the future. How much money do I need? What kind of skills do I need? What kind of technicality do I need? And so on. Then we need to determine what kind of resources and skills is needed and we don't have. So we understand where we get it from, where we can get it from, and how much it's going to cost us and all that. Then we set something called an action plan. The action plan is a measurable plan. Will be set in timely measure. For a long time, we could have some sort of deviation and you don't know that you went out of the line. But you have small, or measurable, small, tiny objectives. You can't control it all the time. If you get out, you'll be revised. And this is what happened in number 6 and number 7. How many minutes do I have left? 20? Okay. Half an hour? Yeah. If we can talk about this very, very quickly, I'm going to revise what I said, but in a little in depth. I'll tell you what, I think we go fast because I need to go. Oh, here's something very important here. We talk about number 3 here, what resources and skill you need, and you have. 2 things here very important. We need to understand what's external factors and what's internal factors. There's something called SWOT. SWOT analysis is SWOT. The S and the W is internal in the organization, in the economy, macroeconomic, microeconomic. The S is the strengths of the organization or the economy or the country or whatever. The W is the weakness point. When we talk about the external, it's the O and the T. The O is the opportunity and the T is the threat. Usually we do some sort of a matrix. And we put here S and W, and we put here O and T. So you have 4 squares. The first square is going to be S and O, right? Strengths and opportunity. Can somebody help me out? What's that means? That means that the organization got a lot of good points, got a lot of strengths, and the organization has some sort of a very good opportunity out in the market that works on. What kind of strategy we should set in there? Kill them. Kill the competitors. All right? Fine. If we go to the S and the SW. O now? W and O, I'm sorry. W and O. W is what? Weaknesses, which is internal, and O is still opportunity in the outside or out in the surrounding. What that means? We have some sort of weakness point, but we still have some opportunity outside in the surrounding that we're working on. What kind of strategy we set here? We need to use the opportunity to cover our weaknesses so we get a win situation. So we kind of maximizing the benefit of using the opportunity here that outside, so we can overcome the weaknesses that we have. The same strategy here is kind of equal when we have a threat and strengths. I'm talking right? Yeah. Strengths and threat. Actually, when I draw it, it's more crystallized. So strengths, I'm having a very good point in the organization, but there is some sort of threats outside. So I use the strengths of the organization to overcome the threat, then I'm winning the situation here. So what happens if we have weaknesses in the organization and threat outside? The only thing to do is not to go there. Because you remember when I asked you to kill them, in that position, somebody's going to kill you. Or do a lot of praying at that time, may God help you out. All right? So you like this. So the idea of the SWOT, it's very effective tool. I would like you guys to try to use it. Please read a little bit about it. I wish I can go deeper on it, but most probably they're not going to allow me for the time, and I need to go to another point. All right. So that's what I mean from the external condition and internal condition. This is exactly what we said, so I'm just going to keep this is important, actually, if you allow me to go back there very quickly. The overall plan will be outlining the steps. The action here is very clear. If you allow everything to be written down, you're not going to get out of the line. 7 things got to be taken care of in any action plan. What's the task? Why? Why is the outcome? Is the objective or the goals? How we going to do it? If we figure out the technicality for the task to be done, we'll figure out who has the skills for it, then we appoint them for it. So how will let us know who will do it. And then we need to know when. When we get 2 parts here. When we started, how long it's going to take. And we need to know where it's going to be done and how much it's going to cost. Would you like me to say it again, or it's clear? Shall I say it again? 7 important points. What's the task? Why? How? Who will be doing it? Where? When? 2 things here and when. When we start and how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. This is exactly what I mean from a short-term setting. This action plan sets actually the measurement of executing the job, and automatically measure give you the controlling point of measuring the job. So the action plan show you what to do and how to measure what to do. All right? Number 6, very quickly, is to measure as we go. If we see in number 7, if we see any deviation, we need to revise our plan in order to go where we need to go. This is very important information that we have to take in consideration and put in mind when we have any type of planning. We need to know what we're dealing with. What's our markets? How things work in this market? What kind of trend now and in the future? There's always trend. Trend comes from supply, demand, buying behavior. So the idea here is we need to figure out everything in our market. Then we need to know what's the marketing conditions and the requirements. What's that means? If we talk about buying behavior, the buying behavior of the client depends on what's exposed, what kind of demand, what kind of supply to the demand that's in the market, which will form something called future and current situation or buying behavior. All right? Then we need to know what's classification we're setting in. Maybe I am a huge organization. Maybe I'm a medium organization. Maybe I'm a small organization, so I need to know exactly what kind of classification I fit in. What's the market area? Do I work in the whole country? Do I work in geographical territory? Do I work outside the country? What kind of clients I could satisfy? And we need to know who are our competitors. This is very important. Competitors form the behavior of your clients, because whatever they supply to the market will influence the people that buy from you. So the idea is you cannot neglect your competitors. You need to understand their strengths, you need to understand their weaknesses, and then you need to know what kind of advantages we have in our country, what kind of advantages we have in our organization, what kind of labor needs we have, what kind of image, a commercial image does the organization has, and what are the financial requirements that we need for our play. Do I have time yet?
Yes.
Still have time? Michelle?
Excuse me, we have a break now.
Break now?
Yeah.
Okay. Any question, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to a break?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we go to break and we'll continue next time.
So we get the questions after the break?
Yes.
Okay.
2009, he was the GM of ENP section of RSPOC. He has contributed as BOC CNPC as a director and president of CPOC during 2009-2013. Later on, he became the exploration director of CNODC and CNPC.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We talked about planning. Planning is going to include, I should go back to the mic, I'm sorry. We talked about planning. Planning is going to include the 4 other functions in management. The first one we're going to talk about here is organizing. Think about planning that we determine where we stand and where we need to go. So we need to have some sort of a power to take us from where we stand to where we need to go. This power is forming the company hierarchy. Job description, job creation first, job description. Job description means what this job should give me, what kind of contribution the job should give the organization. And something called job specification, who should work at that job, what kind of specification they would have. And then we have something called KPIs, key performance indicator, in order that I can measure what kind of objectives, what kind of goals that these people are achieving. This is quickly, I'm going to try to go fast because they're giving me half an hour, and this is not too fair. Number 3 will be staffing. Staffing would come from number 2 when we talked about job specification. Job specification, I have to have a qualification such and such. I have to have skills such and such. I have to have people that would do these KPIs in some certain professional way, and then we start staffing people accordingly. Staffing is extremely complicated. Staffing depends on 2 things, knowledge and skills. What kind of knowledge my employee knows, what kind of skills which is transferring of the knowledge to something that tangible, that I would come results out, that would create results out to the organization. If everything works right till now, we have something called leading. Leading is not managing. We have huge confusion here between leading and manager. Who's a manager? Who's the leader? A manager is a traffic officer. Tells you where to go according to the higher officer in the organization, and he doesn't input his personal vision into anything in the job. A leader is a leader, is a visionary, is somebody creates and composes one of the most beautiful music you can hear all over. That he takes his department or she takes her department and she composes the best out of it in order to get the best results. Leading happens when I have the right staffing, when I have the right organization according to achieving the right plan. When I do leading, results comes out. So I have to make sure that I have function number 5 in management, which is controlling. Controlling, in planning, we set measurement of performance. Controlling is taking the measurement of performance and measuring is everything is going according to plan or not. If not according to plan, as we said in number 7, you remember, we try to reverse ourselves to get back to where we need to go. All right. One of the most important things to understand planning is where we stand. According to May 10th, the World Bank Group, this is what happens. The oil group has declined sharply since June 2014 and are expected, as Ashraf Bek said before, are expected to remain low for considerable period of time. The drop likely marks the end of the commodity super cycle. We never seen $147 per barrel before. So the idea is this has been cut. Since the past episode of such sharp declines consisted with a substantial fluctuation in activity and inflation. Let me go quickly. This is how things looks like, and I really want you to pay attention to this. This is a chart for oil prices since 1970, market with everything. Market with the geopolitical, which is a huge influence. A market with the economic influence, and market with the monopoly influence. Let's put it that way. The free market is not set in heaven. There is some sort of monopoly on it. People know how to squeeze things. Companies knows how to squeeze things. Tycoons knows how to squeeze things according to their benefit. Watch out carefully with me, please. In 19, the Arab embargo dropped the oil price a little bit, then it went sharp from, I think it was $8 to something close to 43 or something. Then everything happened after that has a huge effect on the price. The Iran Revolution, I believe it was 1979, then the Iran War, Iraq War, then it dropped down, and Iraq invaded Kuwait. It went up again. All these abundant saving procedures. One of the most important things, the rule of OPEC. How OPEC plays the game. If anybody setting a strategy for oil company, you need to know the surrounding, as we said in the morning. What happens? How people acting with this? Who is the key player? What kind of political agenda they have? What kind of monopoly game they play? This is need to be done and need to be clarified 100%. All the way up to what happened in 2008. Then the crash happens, what happened in Wall Street in 2008, then it went up again, and here we go. All right, let's go see something. I believe Ashraf Bek had this type of question from one of you gentlemen. Did we learn from history? What happened? What kind of comparison that we have done between the drop of 2008, 2009, and today? This is what we try, or the study of the World Bank tried to say in here. Is it similar? What kind of emerging lesson that we had from there? Could it be applied to what we have today? Let's see. Compared to previous episode of price decline during the past 30 years, the fall in oil price between June 2014 and January 2015, yes, it's significant, but it is precedental. Precedental means it happened before. So it's not unprecedented. 5 other episodes of oil price declines of the 30% or more, 7-month period occurred. since trading in futures exchange started in 1984. 1984 was a huge change in my field, in management. I was brand new in the United States at that time. I learned something the hard way. We didn't know much about human resources at that time. But if you remember, what was it, not Mobil, the other one? Exxon. Exxon, I'm sorry, I forgot for a second. Exxon was the largest employer, largest hirer in the United States. Then the Valdez, if you remember, in 1986 or something that happens, I don't know if somebody remembered this, in Prince William in Alaska. You're shaking, you nod your head and say, you remember that? Then the price went down. I think it was 40, went down to 8 or something like that. Exxon came with something brilliant. They restructured the whole HR system, that every and each company, not only in the oil and gas industry, in all industry, even in automotive, government are doing this now, well, early retirement. Exxon came out with this. So this is one of the most huge impact and emerging lesson that we need to take care of. All right? Let me go quickly. They give me only half an hour. The first one in 1985-86 was mostly associated with significant shift of OPEC policy, while subsequent episodes were primarily driven by weakening global demand. Following the U.S. recession in 1990-91 and 2001, something happened, if you can go back too quickly, the Asian crisis on 1997, if I can remember. Where's 1997? It should be somewhere here. Here you go. And see, it's market. I wish that you take a shot for this, if you can, or try to look it out on the website of the World Bank and get it. This is extremely defined and shows you everything, roller coaster, what happens exactly and what. All right, I'm trying to go very fast. I didn't like that, but I have to. Okay, let me go back here. What causes of the sharp drop on oil prices and the outlook? The decline in oil prices since the mid-14 was partially a catching up to a broader trend of commodity price declines, which is monopoly as well. After reaching deep low during the global financial crisis, most commodity prices dropped, including oil prices. It picked up in the first quarter. Since then, price of metals, agriculture, and raw materials, whatever, declined steady as a result of the weak global demand, and this was following the crisis of 2008, if you ladies and gentlemen remember that. In constant, oil price fluctuated within a narrow band around 105 barrel until June 2014. Let's see what's happening here. This explains that crude oil price and the primary drive of petroleum product. I used to work for Aramco in Saudi Arabia on the Samref refinery as a consultant in Yanbu. I'm not quite sure if you know what that is. The crude oil comes from the east and Yanbu on the west. They take the crude oil for $5 a barrel, starting from 2008 to 2007, I'm not quite sure. And when they process it, they send it out to $240 a barrel. The idea here is, as we all know, you don't sell any crude. You're kind of dumb if you send any crude. Yeah, you sell any crude. The idea is, even processing, you have to have some sort of a good deal with whoever is doing the process for you in order to get a portion of the cake. This is explain exactly how things fluctuate and tells you, I believe this was like 2 weeks ago, tells you up to 2016 how things fluctuate until then. Okay? Let me go quickly as well. Development and demand and supply. If we talk about economy, free economy, real economy, non-monopoly economy, let's put it in a very polite way. Non-monopoly economy, it's a demand that being created in the market for whatever product, whatever service, whatever idea, and according to the demand, people come and supply this demand. If the demand and supply are equal, we have a huge, what's called huge elasticity market. That means that the price is gonna go or will be affected by different variables. If the demand do more than the supply, then the price is gonna go high. If the demand is less than the supply, then the price is gonna go low. Whatever is happening here, you can see it. See what Bank of Canada says, if oil prices stay around $60 per barrel, roughly 1/3 of the current oil production and more than 2/3 of the expected increase in global oil production could become uncommercial. Why? Because this is the, what they call it, the rock oil, الصخر. حضرتك تسمع عنه طبعا. The idea is it costs too much. On the other hand, over time, cost of unconventional oil, this is what I've been asking Dr. Wang, I believe, what's the idea now with the oil, biofuel and the gas? The biofuel and the rock oil, it costs a lot more than the regular oil that we exploring every day. So the idea here, over time, cost of unconventional oil production is likely to decline as new technology will reduce the cost. How long this is going to take, we have no idea. But if you're setting a strategic plan for Sudan production of oil, you need to make sure that you put in mind that technology is changing every day. And technology is crazy. One day we're going to get up to work, up in the morning, they're going to give us 20 minutes to brief us with the new system that they have in our organization because it's been changed overnight. So the idea is we need to know that all changes in technology will affect the price of exploring that. معلش ممكن حضرتك تحطيني على الشو تاني؟ أنا آسف. على شو؟ أيوه؟ أيوه؟ All right. This is one of the monopoly I was talking about, without production of about 36 million barrels a day, of which 30 million barrels a day is subject to quotas. OPEC still accounts for 40% global oil supply. We know, well, who's OPEC, we know when it started, we know why, we know who's manipulating them, we know everything about it, we know who's not a member, we know what kind of policy the member used. One of the large supplier in oil manipulated the whole market in order to kill a neighbor for them and in order to kill a guy up there in Russia. You know the whole story. So the idea is we need to make sure that we understand this type of policy because this is a huge monopoly in there. I'm not going to go in details and I'm going to go too quickly. The geopolitical development. Iraq was supposed to be a huge supplier, I believe, in the second half of 2014 and 2015. But the presence and the birth of Daesh has turned out the whole story, and that affected the demand in the market because the supply is less. That was supposed to raise the oil price. It didn't happen. It didn't happen because there is another coverage and there is another reserve. The United States does not, for the first time, I believe, not last year, the year before maybe, or last year, I'm not quite sure, they stopped importing oil, and their consumption is fully from inside the United States. That means that the demand that was coming from United States has dropped, and that affected the market hugely. So the idea here is we need to figure out, when we set a strategy, what kind of production we have in Sudan, what kind of proportion of the Sudan production relatively Ashraf Bay to the whole world, what kind of proportion that has a demand, and in which areas, and how much is the consumption of those people or these government that consuming our production. This is very important to figure it out, and you have to figure out even the political influence in there, because it's very important. I hope I'm not talking politics. I don't understand in politics, but I understand politics when it comes with management and affects how the demand and supply to products and things. Okay, that's one of the most important things as well. The American dollar has been high for the past couple of years, I believe, since June 14 and January 15, by almost 10%. That affected the price because it lowers the price of the oil barrel. I'm sorry, it went too quickly. Let me go back here. The demand inventory, I was just talking about that the consumption of the United States was fully domestic today for 2 years now, and the whole inventory is less, is higher, so the demand is less. Am I going too fast? You guys are following? Okay. Two important things here. The change in inventory on expectations changing the market condition, and the finalization of commodity as assets under management of commodity-based funds that grow from 40 billion in the early 2000 to 300 billions in 2012. And this is something very important that came from Bath and Hannois, 2010, and that will show you to a great extent why we had a nosedive on the oil price. Outright the market manipulation, as I talked about before, that will clear to you the inventory belt that goes hand in hand with the increase in future oil price. We need to understand that this has to be studied. This has to give me some sort, especially in this area in here, 27, 28, and 29. It's kind of close to what we end now. See what's happening? This is the liquid fuels inventory, and this is what happens when we had the similar area. So we need to discuss this, and we need to identify it thoroughly in order to understand what's coming. Remember when I talked in the morning about forecasting? What's forecasting? Trying to crystallize the future. Trying to crystallize the future won't come till I study what happened before in order to see what's may happening in the future. The long-term drive of oil price decline, OPEC shares of the global oil supply has fallen, and this is very influenced as a result of raising oil production from unconventional source in the United States and Canada, and as the biofuel production. The oil intensity of global activity has steadily declined, and these are all facts. The consumption by the non-OECD economies has risen rapidly since the early 2000 and status. Okay, what's the conclusion here? Following 40 years of relative stability of around 105, is sharply between June and 14 and January 15 has been dropped. Comparing the early 2011 commodity price peaks is not there anymore. Show the decline in oil prices was much larger than that is in non-oil commodity prices. If you get the history of the sugar, get the history of the corn, get the history of whatever type of other commodity, it's not going to show the same and declining percentage or proportion as in oil products. The decline in oil price was significant compared to other episodes of oil price drop during the previous 3 decades, but not unprecedented as well. All right, that gives you more analysis about the whole thing. Let me talk about this very quickly. Impact of oil price and activity and inflation. This is a very important thing, and I just need to highlight these 3 questions in here, or 3 briefs in here. Which key channels transmit changes in oil price to activity and inflation? This is very important. I was trying to highlight a couple of minutes ago. Study the whole market. Who's the player? What kind of monopoly they have? What kind of demand they have? What kind of supply they have? To what other partner? And so on. How large is the impact of the oil price movement on activities? How large is the pass-through of changes in oil prices to inflation? This very quickly, this is Bloomberg, I believe, like maybe 2 weeks ago. They tried to show in here that crude oil plays major role in commodity and investment. This is oil. Only gold by itself is totally different from each one of the others. Oil, crude, Brent, natural gas, heating oil, gasoline. So everything here in brown, if you collect these all together, it's probably gonna come up with more than 20%, which is gold. I'm not able to see from here. It's not exceeding 12% if I can see right. Is it 11.9? I believe it's 11.9, right? Okay. What we need to learn from this: policy responses to lower oil prices, which are still being formulated in many countries. I believe some of the respectful speaker has said this before. We're not 100% set in stone of our policy, how to deal with what type of crisis and the prices we have, but it's still forward. This includes, for example, the size and direction of the terms of trade shock. I believe that somebody here in the ministry should determine this type of question. How much we used to produce, what kind of damage we have right now, and what is the loss. Number 2, the exchange rate regime, and this is one of the keys that we can regain some income out of every government, especially the governments that are hit by less exporting oil. They have to look back to their financial system, especially the exchange rate, with a great and true consideration. Now we're talking about cotton paper or cotton material. We don't have the full coverage of gold like we used to have to any national currency. So the idea here, oil was part of the coverage of any organization currency. We need to make sure that we look back at it, the physical and the external buffers, the balances sheet, that mismatches, and we still to revise this. I'm going to talk about this too quickly, but I believe I still got 20 slices. How many minutes?
Another 15 minutes.
15, good. So the idea here is to organize ideas. Flexible policy or framework shall be proposed to determine the approximately mix of adjustment of physical, monetary, and exchange rate policy. All right. If we talk about Sudan, if we talk about any oil exporter country, since the oil price drop is expected to have a large permanent component, policies of oil exporters should be focused on visual adjustment supported by stronger medium term. Medium term, Ashraf Bek, لأن things we're not too clear yet. People usually used to talk about strategy for 5 years. I always tell people, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, do your country, do your organization a favor, think about strategy 1 year. Because a strategy is inside out, is answering about what's happening in the surrounding, to the best of my ability, so help me God, right? So the idea is that changing in the circumstances today are too fast, too quickly, too sharp, and sometimes too hard. So the idea is we cannot do long term, that's set in stone, and whatever happens, we can rework with it. So the damage will be huge. That's why I highly recommend that we work with a medium-term physical framework. Oil sector fell dramatically even for those exporters that increase our production. We've seen that the past couple of years. Should oil price turn out to be higher than the baseline projection, a lot of things would control that. Many exporters would still have their physical break-even prices well above the usual range of oil price forecast. I believe Mr. Ashraf was talking about this a couple of minutes ago, and this is one of the biggest problems that we face. How quickly the adjustments should proceed and how far it needs to go will depend on the size of the buffer. The buffer is how much money, how much flexibility, financial flexibility, the country economy is covered or flexible with. In addition, exporter will externally, or with external vulnerabilities should consider depreciation and or greater exchange rate flexibility. I'm not quite sure how we do this here in Sudan, but I believe that the ministry should wait all this and should talk to the prime minister, talk to the president, to see the exchange rate. How that would cover, يا أشرف بيه لأن حضرتك تعرضت للكلام ده, how that would cover part of the loss. It's not going to cover all the loss, but at least will cover part of the loss. Venezuela started doing this, I believe, a couple of months ago, and I'm not quite sure how the experience turned to be to them, but I think they trying to pass, okay? Country with sizable physical buffers, they can consolidate gradually over the medium term and possibly even ease fiscal policy in the short run, like Saudi Arabia. They bring in a lot of money, I believe was $420 billion from the assets in Europe and the United States. I'm not quite sure from the number, but I think this is what I heard a couple of months ago. And they have a wide area that they can play with. All right, let me go quickly. I'm very close to finish. I got about 10 slides. All right. Now, strategy that could help us out. Medium-term policies. Over the medium term, oil exporter will benefit from a number of structural reforms. Ashraf Bek pointed this out. He didn't talk about reforms, but he talked about reforms up here. And this is what reform the structure, reform the strategies, reforms everything. Let's get a quick look at it. 3 reforms are beneficiary in their own rights, but lower oil prices strengthens the case for commencing implementation of this. All right, physical consolidation and framework. This is very important. The experience of 1986 of Exxon, they had 16 divisions. They consolidated together and got 2 divisions out, the domestic division and the international division. The domestic division does everything inside the United States. The international division does everything outside the United States. But the idea, leaving 16 division at that time, when I have a leak in my pocket, so I have 16 leaks because each division, that's something I'm not quite sure how to do it because I don't know how you run your business. But the idea here is it's very important to have consultation here. One more thing, the fiscal policies should be recalibrated to lower prices. Now we used to spend some more money in, I'm not quite sure. غششني حضرتك. I'm not saying, I'm not gonna cut development, I'm not gonna cut training, people get mad, people, they're not efficient, they're not gonna do their job. But you know guys, that we used to pay a lot of money and the big notches traveling and Ramadan is coming, everybody get 300 كيلو يميش و 130 لفة قمر دين و انت بتحكي ليه؟ انت شكلك ما كنتيش قمر دين بقالك سنتين ومش عارف ايه. There is a lot of holes that should be worked on to make sure that we cut this out. Okay, number 3, the adjustment should favor growth. It has to be smart. Smart adjustment is not only cutting expenses, ladies and gentlemen. Smart adjustment is pushing for more development, is pushing for more income to my pocket as an organization, so I would get more growth out of it, equity consideration, and developing the non-commodity sector. One of the most important things here, which I'm going to talk about it now, diversification. When I came from the United States back in 2001, I used to work as a consultant for the Arab contractors. You probably, all of you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, hear about it. The huge contractors in Egypt and in many other countries. Was a big job that Hyundai from South Korea has taken from them. They were so mad. Ibrahim Mahlab was a prime minister. He was talking to me and he said, what we do now? I said, open a branch in South Korea. He said, excuse me, go open a branch in South Korea. You're gonna fight them back in their backyard. So they're gonna back off and leave you your backyard and they're gonna concentrate in their backyard. This is not only the way of diversification. Diversification is getting into different line of businesses that you haven't been there before in order to boost the current business that having some trouble. أقولها بالعربي؟ ماشية ولا أقولها بالعربي؟ Diversification هي التنوع. Creating more line of business علشان دايما احنا عندنا 4 stages in any business. It's like a product life cycle, a service life cycle, whatever you want to say. It starts with the introduction, the too much effort, profit too little, then we go to growth, then we go to maturity. Maturity is very beautiful because everybody's making good money. Then we go to decline. If I'm having business that's declining, and you said that, Yashra Big, before a couple of minutes ago, the oil industry is declining. So it's like you stay having a mean, you stay in the maturity thing, okay? The financial sector policy, I'm not quite sure how to do that. You have to look very quickly and very deeply in every penny you spend. And you make sure that utilizing your pennies. بتحلبه. الpenny, الجنيه بيتحلب. That's why we can make some good money out of that. All right, more flexible change rate regime. This is a government reform hub. 1 minute?
5 minutes.
Okay. 15? 25? 35? Reform of energy price and taxation. This is very important as well. Other consideration, many countries would benefit from greater physical transparency and assets, including by exposing quasi-physical activity of the energy sector state-owned enterprises. Transparency is something kind of weird in our communities. مش بنفهم كويس. Transparency is putting everything in the light. I'm not quite sure that this is how things works in here. I'm not quite sure that this is how things works in most of the third world countries. But the idea is, or even in the United States, God knows, a lot of things we don't know. Who killed Kennedy? We don't know. مين اللي حرق القاهرة سنة 52? We still don't know. So the idea is you have to have, as a government, some sort of a transparency that shows everybody everything. Now you can control a lot of things. I don't know if you guys remember back in 2014, they raised the fuel prices in Egypt. They came in on all the media. They said the production is costing, the support that the government put is such and such. We're gonna raise the support for the lower slices of the community, and which paying more support and less support for the higher top slices of the community. This probably works very well. Inflation expectation in advance, oil importers need to be closely monitored to understand what's happening. This is something very important as well. It shows you the impact of terms of trade by groups. Very important, but I can read it from here actually. The public debit, the balance sheet, this needs to be focused on in order to make sure that we see what kind of percentage of GDP is affected by the oil industry and how to do that. ممكن أكمل, can I finish this? I got like maybe 7, 6, 8, 9 slices left. Is it time? We talked about strategy for success, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about it quickly in the morning, and I was just trying to crystallize it in here. Thank you very much. I tried, but yeah, it's an honor to be with you here today. I tried to put everything I know in order to transfer it to you. I'm sorry I didn't take the right time, so please forgive me for not exposing everything. And if there's any question, I'd be more than happy to have an answer for you. Questions, please.
Thank you, Dr. Adil.
ربنا يخليك.
From this morning, I like to mention just highlighted very important things that I go through. First, in your discussion or presentation, you mentioned that the management functions composed of 5 important things: planning, organization, staffing, leading, and controlling. And you mentioned that the oil price declined since June 2014 due to geopolitical and economic events. And then there's another one, this is the sharp decline in between 2009 and 2010. This is a global financial collapse, and it's very pronounced at that time.
Sir, I love you. I'm just going to shut down and I'll go back there. But I'm listening 100%. I'm following with you, sir.
And also, he said that the price around $60 per barrel. This will make the oil is uneconomical. And another things also, he mentions that inflation expects us to station in advanced oil importance need to closely monitor. So this is a few things what Dr. Radin mentioned in his presentation. And now the floor for questions and comments.
I'll be hungry. You want to leave it alone. Are you stretching or are you trying to ask? Looks like you're stretching.
Hello, Jesse. Assalamu alaikum. Hussam al-Din Ali, Petronas. You've mentioned that the oil price is governed by the supply and demand. So I have two questions from the supply side and the demand side. We all know that this whole crisis of the oil price came when the shale oil came into market in 2013 or 2014. And it is well known that the shale producers cannot survive in the current price environment. So when it is expected that this shale producer will be out of market if the current oil price continue? That's the first question. On the demand side, are we expected to have demand on the level that we've mentioned or the level that we've seen in the last decade when the major oil importer like China and India were producing that much? Are we expected to have the same level of demand somewhere in the future? Thank you.
So the idea is we can.
Use your mic.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Audible to
I'm sorry. The idea is we can't neglect the fact that there is too many complicated factors that affect the rise or the fall of any commodity. Oil is a very hot commodity. Oil is industry. Oil is war. Oil is the emperors, the rise and emperors that fall. So the idea is, as I try to say, there is geopolitical, beside the demand and supply. There is manipulation. There is the prices of the value of the U.S. dollar. And there's a lot of other factors that even economists can't figure it out. Remember when we talked about OPEC? They manipulate things. Saudi Arabia manipulate the price in order to gain the support of the U.S. all the time. Saudi Arabia manipulated the oil price in order to kill Iran. I really don't care about Saudi Arabia or Iran. I care about the people that produce oil, and this has get damaged, huge damage to them, and damaged the vertebral column of their economy. This is question number one. The question number two, you talked about demand when we go to different countries, right? You need to understand, you mentioned China and India. China and India are coming superpowers. That means the industry there, China, I love China. China's number one in economy now, in my point of view. But they have a very good philosophy. They're not emperor. They're not imperials. They don't want to be imperial. They want to sell everything. They want to get you a Christmas tree. They want to give you a car. They want to give you everything. And the idea here is that's industry. So we need to know what type of demand that they have in our oil. And I've seen a gentleman here, Dr. Wang, was talking about this or touching down about this today. So the idea is we need to know what kind of good relation we should have with our trade partner and put all of the focus on it. I hope that answers your question, the second question. Sir.
Dr. Aladdin, let me consider an issue which is beyond oil. Being an energy consultant, you are aware that researches are going on for non-conventional energy, maybe hydrogen energy, maybe coal fusion, or this type of researches are going on. And we are expecting that within 10 years, there will be a breakthrough. Just like shale oil, the fracking technology gave a leverage for increasing production in USA, and that played a havoc in oil price and oil price scenario. Similarly, do you think that the non-conventional energy sector will come up in the next 10 to 15 years? And is the energy consultants or the World Bank or IMF, they are taking into account this factor in forecasting the oil scenario in next future 20 years? What is your idea, sir?
I think we're going, and that's my personal, humble, stupid opinion. I think we're going into crisis soon, especially in the Middle East area.
Please use the mic.
I'm sorry? Mike? I'm sorry. I think we're going to go into a crisis soon, especially in the Middle East area. It's shown. It's exactly shown. Every point of oil that Syria produced has been stolen. Iraq, whatever happens in there, happened for the oil and the water. So the idea, Sudan, the attacks all the time in Egypt. The other plane the other day, 804, was supposed to land 40 minutes earlier. So it was supposed to land and explode in the airport, in Cairo airport. So we come out and we say, Daesh is controlling Egypt. You understand what I'm saying, sir? There is huge plans that been trying to be put for this area. I believe in God. I believe in God. Allahu ghalibun ala amrihi walakinna akthara an-nasi la ya'lamun. I'm not quite sure if you understand what I said, but it means that God will do whatever He wills. But most of the people don't know. It's not only going to be oil. We're going to have a lot of turbulence, and especially in the food commodity, rice, sugar, a lot of things. Maybe sugar is not going to be affected too much because it comes from Brazil, but the area of sugar and all that will be affected. Otherwise, if things doesn't explode widely, it's going to be probably around this neighborhood. Why? Because you're not allowed to make money, number one. Number two, the technology, as we try to say, will speed up and lower the cost of exploring biofuel and the rock oil, and I believe this is what's going to happen. I'm sorry it's too black, but let's pray it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, my answer is not too good. All right? The two gentlemen in here, the chairman, they decided there is no lunch. So you have to keep asking.
Okay. First, I would like to appreciate the very rich and comprehensive presentation by Dr. Anatin. My question, you have an initiative to have strategize the business in the short term. But we know that to strategize what the business is about having long-term strategies. So, does it work? Especially if we know that some strategies with the support initiative in a company can have few years to be fully implemented, with some huge financial obligations. So I may be afraid that change in this strategy will have some interruption or
You touch it, the nerve. The restructuring, Ya Ashraf Bey, is not only restructuring the company structure. Sandu, if we restructure Sandu, things will work out. One of the most important things for organization now, the strategy you're talking about, sir, is to work with the HSE. Most of our companies don't have any idea about it. Sambra, for the refinery, they're claiming 0 accidents. And they had a shutdown. You know what's a shutdown in a refinery? They shut down the FCC and they changed the whole thing and all that. The crude farm is right there. But you know how the story better than I do. And they playing around. So some leak, fuel leak. And they throw us here. I kept running. I thought I was in a marathon, New York marathon. My life يا أستاذي. فعارف اللي بيقول لك خدله في أسنانه وطر. But the idea is it's up here. And up here, according to the loyalty that employees felt towards the organization, the top management, you should be, had to create this loyalty. They have to make sure that everybody owns and feel that he's an owner in this organization, so you're gonna get the best out of him. So I believe 101% on the human race. Give me the best managerial system and put it with people that not used to it, you're not gonna get 60% results. You're not gonna get 50% results. So the idea is that strategy is take care of your HR. No. خلاص قوم خلصت. Would that answer the question?
My question specifically about how to update or change the strategy in the short term, as you you claim that to have strategies update or change in short term, but we know that the strategy is always about long term, and the long term may give an indication that some of the projects that supporting this strategy may got lost because of the change.
This is extremely important. Actually, I wanted to go a little further on the 7 steps in the morning, but according to time, my chairman's asked me to speed up the process. Number 1 is extremely important. Remember the hierarchy that we made for the top management, middle management, lower management? The top management had to do something that called scanning the environment. We have a technical vice president. The technical vice president has to know everything about technical in this field for the next couple of years. We have an HR vice president. He has to know everything and anything and everything about HR. We have finance, any and everything. Marketing, any and everything. If we can get this, a real information, we can kind of crystallize the future. We need to remember that planning is not an art and it's not a gift, it's a mix. I'm trying to make myself a little clear. You have to practice it and you have to be gifted for it. Even if I'm not gifted for it, I have to get Professor, because I know he's gifted for it. Would you please help me out on this? I have this type of information and I'm not quite sure that I can crystallize a real life strategy out of it. And I know that you can help me out.
1 minute.
شفت حضرتك؟ هي المعاملة كده من أول النهار. Did I answer the question? All right, I'm donating the 1 minute for lunch. بس مش هسيبها حضرتك. Any question, ladies and gentlemen? Then please.
Thanks for having me this opportunity. We do thank you for the nice presentation that you have delivered. We know well America dominates the global economy, and they know the risk of producing. No, from your own point of view, they know that well the risk of producing the excellence of the producing of the rock oil is high. Why do they pump a great amount of barrels?
It's costing too much. And each barrel, I believe, up till now, still costs $65 to be produced. مش أنا مظبوط? This is what we tried to say a couple of minutes ago. Technology will lower this cost. And the idea is you have to look at the big picture. They haven't to start stopping this and lower the price in the whole globe till they have a sufficient stock or inventory. That's why they don't have to go through producing the rock oil now. You see me, sir, what I'm trying to say? And this is not politics. This is manipulation of economy. Manipulating of politics, I don't understand it because I don't know how it works.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aladdin.